Hey guys, welcome to Hired How to Get the Jobs weekly update. Over the next 30 minutes, we are going to be discussing the best way and the most efficient way to customize your resume. Next, we'll be talking about how to best prepare for the most important interview in the hiring process. And I'll also let you guess which one it is, so feel free to put in the comments right now which interview you think in the hiring process is the most important. I'll grade later. And then as always, we'll take your questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. This week and last week, it's been a lot of resume clients, so I'll certainly have a lot of resume questions that I've been helping clients with throughout the week that I'll be sharing. But feel free again to answer or to ask your own questions, and I'll be happy to answer them and put them in priority position on the weekly update. Now, this week, I first want to tell you to follow me on Facebook, follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Instagram, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you don't know, Facebook, LinkedIn, I do a weekly show like this, Wednesday at 10 a.m. on LinkedIn, Thursday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. On Facebook, both are streamed live to YouTube at the same time, and everything, all my content is recorded over at YouTube and uploaded later on. I also do some weekly videos on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then on Instagram. If 5-6 minute videos are too long for you, because maybe you're like me and you suffer from ADHD but were never diagnosed with it, if that's too much content, or a straight 30-minute show is too much content, then go to become a follower of my Instagram, hired_how-to-get-the-job, because I try to give daily tips there around themes. In the past weeks, I've done networking themes, how to network during COVID-19, every single day, a different technique, a different tip. I've done LinkedIn weeks where how to upgrade your LinkedIn profile, a daily bite-sized tip there. We've done a few weeks in a row where there was emotional intelligence interviewing. So look me up there, and then hopefully each one of those will provide you something different, but keep you honing those skills that are going to help you get the job, as we're all potentially looking for opportunities right now. So with that, again, my name is Tony Martin. I write a blog called howtogetthejob.blog. It's focused around resume writing, interviewing skills, salary negotiations, and I help and mentor people through this process of looking for a job, because many people out there are looking for a job for the first time in 20 or 30 years, and they've never actually had to apply. It was always, I knew this person and they got me the interview. It's a brand new ball game now. If you need help with your resume, you need help with those things, feel free to reach out to me, and hopefully over the next 30 minutes, I'll be able to showcase some of the skills that I have and the knowledge that I have. So when you walk away from this, you'll feel like you've learned something that's going to make you a stronger candidate for it. So let's jump right in. So first of all, let's talk a little bit about how to customize your resume in the shortest amount of time and why that's important. So let me first tell you, let me give you a few resume tips that I think are important that I've been talking a lot with clients this week. First of all, on your resume, you should lead with what makes you different. And what I mean by that is that if a job requires a master's degree, I don't want to see an educational section on top of your resume unless you just got your master's degree 6 months ago or a year ago and you really haven't had a long professional career. But if the job requires a master's degree, put it in the educational section and put that educational section in the back of your resume, because everybody who's qualified is going to have a master's degree. So you having a master's degree doesn't make you different, so don't lead with that information. Lead with your experiences, lead with your accomplishments, because that's what makes you different, and that's your differentiating factor on a resume. Now, even so much on the bullets, just this week, I think it was yesterday, I was working on a client's resume, and he had something in there which said, partnered with clients to reduce costs by 12% over 4 months. Again, he didn't lead with what made him different. He partnered with clients. Everybody in that job partners with clients. So I switched up his bullet. I said, reduced costs by 12% over the past 4 months by partnering with clients. So lead with what makes you different as a section on the resume, but also lead with what makes you different in the bullet. So that way you're leading with the strength, and then the supplementary information comes in the back. Much like interviewing, we've talked about that a lot with interviewing techniques and how you need to make sure that you're leading with the yes or the no. Next, recognize that your resume is not going to be read by the hiring manager first. Do you understand what that means? That means that if you're a very technical person, your resume is going to be read by someone like me, or worse, I have at least 15 years of experience in a variety of industries, but the majority of people who are first screening a resume don't have but maybe 1 or 2 years in the industry, and they might have just been HR. They never actually went to the field to see what you did. So if you're writing very technical resumes, they're not going to understand them, and they might not have the courage to present it to the hiring manager, because the hiring manager has said to them, find me someone who's really strong on hydraulics and electronics. And you start talking about all this equipment you've worked on. Now, it's very often that equipment is hydraulic and electronic, but if you don't just spell it out, that recruiter might not have the courage to advocate on your behalf. And depending on that, how long they've been in the organization, very often these resume screeners aren't the active people. You need to impress them. You need to make sure that they understand what they're looking for. Next, don't overcomplicate your resume with proactive, self-starter adjectives, things that really can't be quantified, okay? So now remember, I don't like absolute statements, so let me say this. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't overcomplicate it with things like that. However, there are going to be times in your career when you're looking at a job description and the job description specifically says we're looking for a proactive self-starter with an entrepreneurial spirit. Well, if that's the case, then I would certainly write those words on my resume because they come out of the job description and you customized it, which is what we're going to be talking about here. But don't just put that because every resume you've written has that, because I can't quantify it. It means nothing. And I have never seen a resume where someone says, I'm a sloth who doesn't like to get things done. Now, chances are some people do feel that way, but you're not going to put that on a resume. So just like that wouldn't have any value, highlighting the exact opposite is not going to have any value either. And if you're not customizing your resume in advance of the application process, guess what? You're not being proactive and you're kind of just proving yourself. But we'll get into that. Next, accomplishments should be interchangeable. Don't use specific equipment names. And what I mean by that is going back to that original comment. Okay, we were talking about that hydraulic equipment, right? I've worked on a lot of offshore resumes in the past couple of weeks. And those offshore guys have worked on top drives. They've worked on hydrolifts. They've worked on mud pumps. They've worked on BOP systems. Now, nobody outside of oil and gas knows what the hell any of that stuff is. But these guys are trying to cross industries. They're trying to move from oil and gas to something else. So we have to remove all that nomenclature, all that specific equipment, and we have to then make that equipment have descriptions. So rather than saying worked on these 5 pieces of equipment, I've changed resumes to say maintained over $500 million in mechanical equipment, which is electronically or hydraulically powered. Something like that shows your experience level. So that's the first thing you want to do in general on resumes. Now, let's jump into how to customize it. So when you're applying to a job, you're going to notice that the job description is going to have a breakdown of, for example, in your background, you might have done marketing, you might have done product development, and you might have done engineering. So you might have done 3 things in your background. Now, if you're applying to a product development job with the same resume you're using for the business development job, with the same resume you're using for the marketing job, you're not going to get any one of those jobs because your resume is too watered down between product development, engineering, and marketing. You haven't focused in one area. So you need to focus your resume in the area that the job you're applying for. So how do you do that? Because ultimately it's very time consuming, right? It's very difficult to pull up a job description and go, okay, well now let me write my resume for this job, send it off, and now let me open up the new one, and now let me write the resume for this job. The way you do this is all on the front end. It's being proactive and proving that one word in your resume is actually true. What it means is that this weekend, what I want you to do is I want you to look at your resume. I want you to copy your resume or save the resume as your name, long version. That's the title of the subject of the resume or the file. Then look at your current job that you just left. Look at the amount of detail that's in there for the different accomplishments you've had. And if you're struggling writing accomplishments, talk to me. That's what I do. Help me help you put accomplishments on your resume, because you need to remove the job description bullets. Nobody cares that you were busy. We care that you were successful. Accomplishments show success. Busy just shows busy. Doesn't show anything that makes you different. So look at all those accomplishments and start labeling those accomplishments with colors. For example, if I'm looking in my past and I was, we'll just say a staffing and recruiting manager. I was a leader. I led up to 9 people. So I'm going to have a leadership bullet. I'm going to highlight that bullet purple. And on the bottom of this resume, I'm going to put in a highlighted purple box and I'm going to type in leadership. And I'm building a legend. So now as I go through my resume, any leadership bullet is going to be highlighted purple. Project management experience, I might label all of these red. So I'm going to go through my resume and I'm going to say, okay, did project management here, here, and here. Now, sometimes the project management bullet is also a leadership bullet because maybe you led a project and team. So then half the bullet is purple, half the bullet is red. So when you're looking at your resume, you can quickly say, this is a half leadership, half project management bullet. But then you put that color on the bottom of your resume. Anything having to do with money, budgets, P&L responsibility, highlight all those green for your most recent job and throughout your entire resume. Now, here's what happens. You look at your resume and you kind of start seeing, okay, I've done a lot of this, I've done a lot of that because the colors, and you just come up with other colors for other tasks or other disciplines. But as you get through your entire resume, there shouldn't be a single bullet that doesn't have a color to it, and there should be a legend on the bottom. Then, here's the challenge. Sometimes the job that we're applying for today, because again, maybe you are a business development person and a marketing and a product development person and a project manager. Maybe you have 4 disciplines. So you can do any one of those 4 jobs. So today you're going to apply to a project management job. Well, it turns out that the last time you really did project management was probably 8 years ago. And guess what? That job in your resume isn't really built out very well. So part of this exercise this weekend is you need to go back in time as you think about your resume. And you need to look at where your resume isn't built out that much. And again, this is a long resume. This isn't the resume you're going to submit to a client or to a company, but this is the resume you are going to use in order to build the customized resume. So then you go back 8 years and you look at the project management job that you had and you go, you know what, there was a leadership bullet. Let me write the leadership bullet. Let me highlight that in purple. There was a money bullet. Let me highlight that. And you start building. And what turns out a 2-page resume today might be a 4, 6, or 8-page resume when you're done with this project or process over the weekend. But here's the great part. You then tomorrow find the job you like, you're excited about the job you like, and you say, okay, let me look at this job description. This job description is 25% business development, 20% marketing, it's 35% product development, and maybe 20% project management. So then you can now look at your resume and say, okay, I need my resume to be 25% business development, 20% marketing, 35% product development, and 20% project management. So you can start copy and pasting the same ratio of bullets into the resume for the job description you're applying to. Then when the recruiter sees the resume, they're going to go, oh, look at this guy. He's got a very, or gal, this person's got a very good spread of the skills that I need. But that is the fastest way to do it. You have to do the work on the front end. And then every time you apply somewhere, you need to make sure that if there's bullets that you maybe, that sometimes very often that job description refreshes your memory of, oh, I did do that, but I forgot to mention the SAP experience back in this company 11 years ago. So then you create that bullet, you make sure it's on your long resume as well. So that long resume is a living document that just keeps getting longer and longer and longer. But what happens is because it's in the right format, and because the only thing different is the highlighted boxes, you can save it as IBM resume, take out all the stuff that's not relevant, get it down to 2 or 3 pages. Again, I don't care how long your resume is, and most people don't. As long as the information in your resume is relevant to the job you're applying for, and you never repeat information, general rule. But as long as you do that, you're going to be very happy with the way that all works out, and it's going to be a much quicker way to customize your resume. So I hope that helps a little bit. And now we're going to move on to our next section before we get to questions and answers. So again, if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them into the comments. We will be late on the questions. I think yesterday we did a similar show format and I was able to get to them 20 minutes in. So probably about 6 more minutes. We're going to now be talking about how to prepare for the most important interview in the hiring process. And if you want to guess, feel free. But my personal opinion, and so my wife is a VP of HR, I reference her a lot, mainly because we disagree a lot. But this is one area where we both agree. And like I always say, my opinions are just my opinions. So never, ever think that because someone like me has said this, that it's the Holy Grail. It just means that because I've worked with so many companies over my career, hopefully my opinion mirrors many of their opinions. And I'm giving you a more well-rounded verse of information. But now let's talk about what the most important interview is in the hiring process. And again, I don't see any guesses. Nobody is brave enough to guess with what they think the most important interview is. But guess what? Here it is. It's the first interview. And often it's the next interview, but I don't want to be cheesy and say, oh, it's the next interview, because that's just kind of lame. Truthfully, though, my wife and I both agree with this. The first interview is the most important interview with the hiring process. Now, why is that? First of all, we kind of talked about it earlier. You, in the first step, the first person who's screening your resume, and typically the first person who's calling you, has the least amount of technical knowledge for that job. They have to be able to recruit for a helper, for a mechanic, for an electrician, for a CFO, for an analyst, for a business analyst, for a procurement specialist, for a recruiter, for an HR development person, for a training manager. They have to recruit all these positions, and they can't do any of those positions. So guess what? They're very limited in their technical ability. So when they pick up the phone to call you, very often they don't really know what the job is going to do on a daily basis. And if you get too into the weeds with technical stuff, you're going to lose them, because they have a specific script they're trying to go through. So let's talk about preparation for the interview. This all happens before that phone call, because I would love to say that you're going to apply to a job at 2:17 p.m. Central Standard Time on Thursday, and at 2:20, 3 minutes later, a recruiter is going to call you. I have done that 3 or 4 times in my career as a recruiter, because I happened to be on the requisition when the person applied. I saw it come in, they were a strong fit, and I called them, and I shocked the heck out of them. But that happens 1 out of 1,000 times. That will not happen to you, statistically speaking. What's going to happen is you're going to apply to the job today. You're going to apply to 3 jobs tomorrow, 4 jobs the next day, 7 jobs next week, 8 jobs the following week. And finally, in 3 weeks from now, on a random Tuesday, you're going to get a phone call from Tony Martin at How to Get the Job. And you're going to go, hi, Tony, and I'm going to call you up. This is how the conversation is going to look. Hey, Mike, how you doing today? Oh, I'm great, Tony. How are you? Well, this is Tony with How to Get the Job. Do you have a couple minutes to talk? Yeah, absolutely. What's up? Well, hey, you applied to a job with us. Why do you want to work for us? And you're going to be, Tony, I got to be honest with you. I've applied to a lot of jobs in the past 3 weeks. I know I applied to you guys, but I'm not really sure what it was for. That's the second to worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is you're like, oh, Tony, I'm just really excited about your opportunity. I know How to Get the Job has a bunch of people. I believe in your culture. I believe in what you're trying to do. I'm really excited to be part of the team. Great. What specifically? Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm not really sure. So you're just lying to me? Like, you don't even know who we are? Well, I mean, now I'm going to tell you something. I have done this many times, but I am the only recruiter I have ever known to do this. When that has happened, either scenario 1 or scenario 2, I have been on the phone and I said, look, Mike, I get that you weren't prepared to talk to somebody out of the blue. So I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to call you back in 24 hours or 36 hours or whatever works in my schedule. But I'm going to call you back in 24 hours. I'm with XYZ company. Make sure you do a little research on us, and we're going to start this over tomorrow. Now, I have a heart to help people. I think most of my clients can figure that out. But honestly, I've never met another recruiter that does that. So I'm going to say nobody else does that. So you need to be prepared for that call. So this is how you set yourself up for the interview, and to make sure that never happens to you. The first thing you do is when you get that phone call on a random Tuesday. Well, first of all, let's say today you get off this webinar and you apply to a job. The very first thing you do is you print out that job description. Then you go to the company website and you print out the about page. And then you print out the specific resume you're using to apply to that job, okay? You staple those together. Then you go to 4 places, and we've talked about this with salary, so I'm going to breeze through this. You go to salary.com, you go to payscale.com, you go to Indeed, and you go to Glassdoor, and you figure out what the salary should be for that job. You write that salary number on the job description, so that way you have an idea that this job should pay $95,000 a year. You put it in a portfolio, a binder. You keep that binder with you and you organize them however way you want. But this way, in a week, you might have 8 jobs you applied to. In a month, you might have 30 jobs you applied to. But because they're alphabetical by job, or I do it by company name, because again, when somebody's going to call you, they're going to say, hey, I'm with ABC Plumbing. So you're going to be able to figure it out quicker than picking it out by the job type. And also, if you're a recruiting manager, for example, you might be applying to 10 recruiting manager jobs. And so alphabetized by company usually works best. But then this is what happens. So that first phone call happens on a random Tuesday, and you keep that portfolio with you at all times. You have it. It's like your wallet or your phone. You have it with you at all times. So when you get that random phone call on Tuesday at 2 p.m., you could say, "Hey, this is Mike. Hey, Mike, Tony Martin with How to Get the Job. How you doing today? Oh, Tony, I'm great. But let me ask you a question. I know I applied to a job with you just recently. I'm right now, make up an excuse. I'm walking my dog. I'm disciplining my kid. I'm getting out of the shower. I'm in the car. I need to pull over. I don't care what the excuse is, but make sure before I ask my first scripted question that you say, can I call you back in 2 minutes because I'm in the middle of this and I want to give you my undivided attention. Nobody in the world is going to say no to your request. And frankly, if I have 20 minutes to do a phone screen, I got 18 minutes for you to call me back in 2 minutes. So this is what happens. Then you hang up the phone, you quickly go to your portfolio, which is with you, and you go, how to get the job. What the hell do they do over there? And then you look at the job description, you look at the about page because you printed all this stuff out. You now get refreshed. You have your resume in front of you that you applied with. And then you call Tony back and you say, Tony, I am ready to discuss this opportunity. Now, if you thought that was valuable, I'd really appreciate a likes because I'm a words of affirmation person and I just like likes. But I hope that really helps you because I have seen so many people do that wrong throughout my career that it's just been something that I really want to make sure people understand how to get better at, because we try to please the person on the other side of the phone far too often, and as a result, we end up screwing ourselves in the process. Don't be a people pleaser. Make sure you actually are coming across well to impress. All right, now let's get to our Q&A. So with that, with that, it's my first time saying it today. I'm trying to catch myself on that. Every time I say that, feel free to write me a nasty comment or something. I don't know. I'll erase it later, but I really need to get better at that. This is a program where I'm trying to help everybody, right? Well, it's also a program I'm trying to help myself and get better at my skills, and my skills of communicating are sometimes limited. So now we are going to move into Q&A. Again, I have a lot of questions. I get a lot of, what's always funny is when I'm done with the broadcast, I get a phone call or a text message from a client or someone who I'm working with and go, hey, I have a question I didn't want to ask on the show. And I go, why? And they're like, well, I didn't think you'd answer it. First of all, any question about resume writing, interviewing stuff is fair game, okay? And if you like this sort of stuff, right? If this is your best part of the program, frankly, make sure you're on my YouTube channel and just skip ahead to the 15-minute marker. You might have to hear the end of a lesson, but skip ahead to the 15-minute marker. I'll always try to have this little Q&A ticker so you know when the Q&A is. But that way, all those videos on YouTube really have a lot of questions that come through. So with that, all right, how do you ensure you are hiring someone that's a good culture fit? Now, this is a really good question. I have two sides of my business. One side, I work with clients, resume writing, mock interviews, prepping them, helping them, mentoring them. On the other side of my business, I work with corporate clients where I do just this. I sit down with them and I help them figure out how to hire people that are going to be cultural fit for their organization. Because far too often, people don't work out when you hire them, and it's rarely because of technical ability. So the first thing you need to do to make sure someone's a cultural fit is you need to understand the culture of the organization. I will often go into an organization, I'll sit down with the CEO and the executive team, and I'll be, describe your culture. And they will describe their culture. And then I'll go to the managers and I'll go, hey, describe the corporate culture here. And they will describe something similar, but not the same often. And then I'll go to the field. And I'll talk to someone in El Paso versus someone in Austin versus someone in Houston, and they will describe 3 separate cultures. And at the end of the day, the executive team is really defining the corporate culture, what they want it to be. And then everyone else is describing microcultures, which are the combination of microcultures will make your cultures. And often it's based on geographical regions. Maybe in this part of the country, we have different types of people that we're hiring versus over here. Or maybe in this part of the country, we have labor unions. And down here, we don't have labor unions. So it's kind of a different dynamic. But you have to understand the different dynamics in those organizations, because the same guy that's working in Arkansas for you might not be a good transfer to go up to New York and go run the shop in New York. There is often these barriers that if we're oblivious to them, we are setting people up for failure. So when you're hiring, you want to make sure that you're, first of all, familiar with what your corporate culture is and familiar with what the microculture is inside that specific department. Okay, even the departments inside the same building. I've been part of organizations where the VP over here, over the procurement team, does not buy into anything that the rest of the organization is doing. So he is leading in a different direction. And as a result, that culture is very different. And if you were using the same emotional intelligence, behavioral-based questions to assess out a candidate for him or her, you would get it dramatically wrong. So make sure that you're focusing on the correct thing for that. Now, make sure the person that you're talking to has good self-awareness. We've talked about this all the time. Self-awareness for me is the #1 trait, emotional intelligence trait that someone needs to be a good fit. Because if they don't have self-awareness, they are not coachable. Now you can gain that trait, you can gain that skill, but you need to know that you're missing that skill. Now, the last part of this, when you're trying to figure out if someone's going to be a good culture fit for your organization, recruiters, focus on the motivational styled questions. Candidates, be prepared to answer motivational questions. This is a motivational question. Joe, what kind of environment do you work best in? Joe, what kind of leadership do you respond best to? Now, Joe might have a feeling to go, well, you know, I mean, what do you mean by that, Tony? Well, you know, I mean, do you like to be, do you work well in a micromanagement kind of environment, or do you work well where you're kind of hands off and everyone just leaves you alone and we're assuming you're doing the right thing? Now, if Joe picks the middle of the road once or twice, that's okay. But if every single motivational question is answered with a middle of the road answer, well, you know, I can really do well in a big team or a lone wolf. I like them both. I can really do good whether I'm micromanaged or being left alone. I'm really good with that. You know, I'm really good under this or that. It doesn't matter. Guess what? Joe, you are never going to get hired. I know you think you're being agreeable, but you're not. You are telling me as the recruiter that you don't want to show me who you really are because you need this job so desperately, or you care so much that you're going to get the answer wrong. You're not actually answering the question. We all have a preference, and it's much better to tell me your preference than to go in the middle for every answer, because you will not get the job. At least if you go with the way you really are, there's a 50-50 chance you're what I'm looking for, but there's a 100% chance if you don't answer the question. All right, so we do have a question here. When a company says, this is from Christina, when a company says they are aggressively looking to fill this said position, why does it take them 2 weeks and beyond to even get back to you around a status of your interview? I love, Christina, great question. This is all about time management, okay? On the other side of this, Christina, you're going to have a recruiter that might have 15 requisitions. And the hiring manager, I have been in this situation so many dang times where the hiring manager is like, I need this right now. So the recruiter goes and they find you. They find that person 5 strong candidates. So this is why, Christina, you need to apply to a job within the first 3 days of the job going live. If you do not apply to the job within the first 3 days of the job going live, you probably won't get an interview, especially in today's environment. Because when the job goes live, in the next 3 days, I have probably compiled 300 to 400 applicants, of which hopefully 10% are qualified, which means I have 30 hopefully qualified applicants. And then I'm going to go through those 30 and I'm going to figure out which 5 or 6 are the best. Once I've done that, I'm then going to move forward with those 5 or 6. So if you've applied on the 4th day, you may never get a phone call. You'll just get a cancellation email down the road. If you are in the hiring process, here's the thing. There are a lot of people in that hiring process, right? So I'm working for a hiring manager and he works for a director who then works for a VP. And at the end of the day, somebody in that value chain has to be part of the interviewing process and they're not going to be available. So even though the hiring manager needs you right now and you are let's say you applied in the first 72 hours, you got in, you're now being interviewed by the hiring manager. They love you, you love them, everything is great. And then nothing. First of all, you're working with a terrible recruiter. And I'm going to be very harsh today. I just been working with a lot of people who have been screwed over by recruiters, and it really aggravates me because we as people don't like conflict. So sometimes, Christina, people just don't have the courage to say, Christina, I can't tell you why because I'm not allowed to, because if I do, you might sue us, but we're going to go in another direction. Now, I have been trained, so I know where the right line is to be able to tell Christina, you know, here's kind of what we're looking for, and here's kind of where you fell short. But most people don't want to do that, so they avoid conflict. Next, if you are in the process, there might be a holdup you don't even know about because, again, I'm trying to interview you. I'm trying to get you in. I'm trying to get you in front of 3 different people, and for whatever reason, those 3 people, one of them isn't available, and for whatever reason, I don't call you and tell you that, hey, I'm still trying to work on your interview. Now, people like me will set a time up with you, Christina, and say, look, Christina, I expect to know more by Friday of next week. I will call you on Friday, the 30th of July, even if I don't know anything. But most people don't do that because they assume that no news is bad news. They don't want to call you with no news. So what you need to do, Christina, in this situation is before every single call, or once you finally talk to them, ask them, when do you think I'll hear back from you on this opportunity? And then they're going to come back and say, well, we should know within 8 days. Great. Can I call you in 9 days at 9 a.m.? And then you put it on your calendar to follow up with them. You've gotten permission from them to follow up with them at that point, because we're all in that limbo period too, right? You don't want to look desperate for the job because they might take advantage of you, but you don't want to seem disinterested because then you might not get the job and they might move to somebody else. And you don't want to show, I mean, it's a complicated mind game, this whole job search thing. So, but hopefully that helps you, Christina. If for whatever reason you want, I'm gonna see if this works. If this works, feel free to give me a like or something, but I'm gonna put my email address in there, Christina. Feel free to email me if that didn't answer your question. And anybody, if you're not strong enough or you're not, courageous enough like Christina to ask a question live, feel free to reach out to me on that. All right, we're gonna answer one more question. I don't see any more live questions, so I'm gonna go with, an applicant tracking question because this seems to be one that I haven't answered in a very long time. And again, I do this show every Thursday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday on LinkedIn at 10 a.m. Thanks, Christina. I agree too. That's why I said it. But so Jessica in Galveston this week asked me, how do you effectively get past the applicant tracking system when you're applying to a company? We've all done this, right? You're applying to a job, you push submit, and you get the automatic email. Thanks, but we're moving on with somebody else. Rarely do you get the automatic email. It says it most of the time. It says, thanks so much for your application. Someone will be with you if you have passed to the next level. Now, here's the thing though. Most companies can't afford an applicant tracking system with artificial intelligence resources in order to disqualify you. Google, IBM, HP, technical companies, large companies, Chevron, Shell, Exxon, I am sure they all have something like this. But your average company, the applicant tracking system isn't going to hold you back. Average company, because it's so expensive as it is with a very manual system, that a robust system, and most of the time HR is seen as overhead. I think in a lot of ways recruiters should be looked at as more of a value add, but most people kind of look at recruiters as, well, anyone can do recruiting. It's just gathering resumes. And truthfully, if you don't do it well enough, and it sounds like Christina's working with some recruiters that might not be doing it well enough, anybody can do it. But it's about customer service, about knowing your customers, whether they're candidates or whether they're the clients and the hiring manager. So you need to make sure though, to get past, and let's just say you want to get past the applicant tracking system. First of all, if there is an AI system, I have a foolproof plan, but I only tell my clients. Sorry, I will never live stream the foolproof plan. That has never failed me yet. But for most people, what you want to do is you look at that job description, you want to look at all the keywords, all the requirements of that position. Project management experience, 7 years, 5 years of leading a team of 7 people or more, P&L responsibility. All those requirements, you want to make sure that you put those requirements on your professional summary. It can be anywhere in your resume because the applicant tracking system is going to scan it and pull it in. But you want to make sure that those requirements are on the top of your resume for a human eye to see, or in the body embedded in your bullets. That's the first thing you're going to do. That's going to help the system, the ATS, actually flag your resume as somebody that's good. The second easy thing you can do is be sure whenever you apply to a company, you apply with a Word document. Do not submit a PDF to a company on the careers page. Here's why. It doesn't parse well. We have all done this where we upload a PDF document and then it automatically fills in the application. So we go to the next page and your name is the company and your dates of employment are the address and everything is all jacked up. Just like if you try to convert a PDF to a Word document, often it's all screwed up. So the system is on the same on the other side. When I, as a recruiter, look through an application, I can see if it was a PDF because it's usually screwed up. I have seen application pages where it's just a bunch of ones and zeros and X's and hashtags and a bunch of characters, and I can then have to click on it, and I realize it's a PDF. But the system, it didn't help you at all. So by doing the Word document, you will at least get everything to parse 95% of the way where it needs to be, and then the system will flag it correctly. So those two answers are the best ways and the quickest ways to get past an ATS. Wow, this time went by so fast today, and I'm sorry. If you liked any of this stuff, again, please like me. I really do appreciate it. I obviously, my business side, just so you know, quick plug if you're still with me, I do resume writing. I do free consults. So if you're struggling to figure out how to get your resume to look well, let me sit down with you for 15 to 30 minutes on a Zoom or for a coffee, and I'll help you with your resume. Yes, it ends with me saying, if you want to partner, this is what it will cost. But it starts with me saying, this is what I would do if we partnered together. So you can then choose to take all the information I gave you and do it yourself, which you're more than welcome to. Or you could say, you know what, that seems a little bit more technical than I'd like. Would you mind partnering with me? We can work together. I'd love to do that. Allow me the opportunity to do that. And so I will make sure that in the comments of this post, I'll make sure that I put, well, I've already put my email address on there, but feel free to reach out to me. Again, make sure that if you like this, please share it. Share it with anyone in your network that you think might benefit from this information. I do this every single week. I have different topics. This is one of the first weeks we actually haven't done a article or by the way, just so you know, article update, government update, bill update. There's no update. Nothing has been approved yet to extend unemployment benefits, things like that. Stay with me for those sort of updates, and as they come in, I'll make sure that I'm always monitoring that as well. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody enjoyed this. With that, I did it again, but it was only twice in one show, so that's not bad. That's not bad at all. I'm really happy with that. So again, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Facebook, follow me on LinkedIn, go to Instagram. And if you know anybody that can use help on their resume, allow me to connect with them and you so I can show you and them how to get the job. I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.